Fine. Let us start. So, to begin with, this COVID-19 has been kind of nightmare to everyone from, I think, last 1.5 years. So, what actually it has done to us, and what can we do, to overcome, is a major subject where we need to discuss, like how it is affecting the human life and how to be strong during this pandemic, especially addressing to the students. That is also very important. Nowadays, most of the education system has changed because of the COVID. Like most of the things are happening online. So keeping that in mind, we'll just go slide by slide. Yeah, already I think Megha has made the introduction. So about me. So this will be the agenda. Like we'll start with corona virology, then we'll have COVID-19 overview, then diagnosis and treatment of COVID-19 and COVID-19 wave in India, and how to be strong and ray of hope. So to begin with, virus is something which is a very small world. It is kind of a very, very small particle, which is a microscopic particle that gets inside a cell and often destroys the cell. So it is actually a parasite, so which are very tiny, smaller than smallest bacteria, and change rapidly. So small and change so often that scientists don't know exactly how many types exist, and these properties make viruses difficult to fight. So there will be always a question whether these are living. Actually, they are non-living if they are in the external environment, but they do have living things. Like virus contains protein and genetic material, and but virus does not act like a living thing because it can't eat, grow, or break down food, or can't use oxygen, cannot function on its own. So it can only reproduce inside a cell, living cell that serves as a host. So generally the hosts can be human being, or even animals, or even the plant. So virus uses host cell as a tiny factory and forces host cell to make virus rather than healthy new ones. So we generally it enters and starts its own production of viruses. So let us know what are the types of viruses available. Generally, it can be grouped into four main categories by shape. Like if you see the diagrams, there are four diagrams which are due to the shape of the virus. So like we have crystal shape, where the example is poliovirus; sphere shape, which is actually influenza virus. Even the coronavirus, which we are going to discuss, is of the sphere shape. Then cylinder shape, which is the tobacco mosaic virus, which actually attacks the tobacco plant. Then we have the spacecraft. So this is actually the virus which attacks only the bacteria. So we have kind of understood, like there are four types, and what would be the virus which is made up of. So that is very important to know. So virus actually, every virus is been made up of genetic material, either DNA or RNA, inside a protein coat. So actually, this protein coat is called as capsid, which you can see here. So it is a coat which is even here is more clear. So this is the layer which is a capsid. So as a capsule, and most RNA is made up of one strand of nucleotides. Example, viruses that causes flu, HIV, common cold, even the corona. So this you can see the single strand of RNA, and most DNA is a two strand, which is the example here, which is a bacteriophage. The image of bacteriophage virus. It has a DNA which has a double strand, and the example for this is viruses that cause chickenpox, wart, are the DNA oriented virus. So both RNA and DNA contain info, that is information for making the proteins. So the information what it carries is to make the proteins. So the protein coat protects the genetic material and helps a virus enter a host cell. So this material actually helps in entering the host cell, and many viruses have protein codes that match characteristics of the specific host. So generally what happens, it is the characteristics of the host, so virus gets into it and then replicates. So we'll see how it happens. So if you see this schematic representation, you can see this is the virus, which is in the diamond shape actually. So this attaches to the host cell. So generally the virus, the proteins what it carries, it has the shape as a lock and key way. It locks into the host cell, in the sense if the receptor of this gets kind of locked into it, and then it is called the attachment, and then the penetration happens where you can see the materials of the proteins are left into the host cell. And once that is done, the biosynthesis happen where you have the virus proteins as well as virus nucleic acids which are released, and then it forms kind of its own cells, in the sense virus, its own assembly of the viruses, and then it blasts and releases multiple viruses. So that's how it multiplies using the host cell. And this is called actually lytic cycle. So this cycle of attachment of the virus cell into the host, and then destroying the cell and then releasing the viruses. So I think this is just to give a background of virus what we have. I think it is clear because I know most of you are from the technical background, all the students. Few of them would have studied biology also. I think you will have idea about the virus. So we'll move to COVID-19. So COVID-19 actually is a coronavirus, which is a spear virus, which is in a shape of kind of the corona of sun. The name it got because of the corona of the sun, the same shape it has, and also they call it as crown shape. So coronaviruses are the virus that are causative agent of common cold. I think every year, if you are aware, we will get flu or viral infection or viral fever, what we generally call it as. So that is a kind of common thing which happens. Generally, it is termed as influenza, which is very common globally, and it happens every year, most of the time, in all the countries. And two previous recent outbreaks due to the coronavirus, which we can see, are the SARS, which happened in 2002 and 3 in Asia, which actually had 8,000 cases and 800 deaths, which is somewhere around 10%. And then you have this MERS, the Middle East virus, which happened in 2012 and 2019 in Saudi Arabia and 27 countries with 2,500 cases and 800 deaths. But COVID-19 is an emerging viral disease due to this new strain of this SARS. So this is a kind of modified SARS, which is little different. So with the genetic aspects. So how we got this SARS or coronavirus actually. So there are 4 different viruses which are coronavirus, which is actually the human coronavirus, so which spreads from human to human, which cause the upper respiratory tract infection. So URTI is upper respiratory tract infection. Then zoonosis is actually from the animal. So this viruses which has come from animals like bat, then even the camel. So these combinations have led to different viruses. But in the case of SARS-CoV-2, which is the latest one, we are not still sure 100% that with the bat, which other animal has been involved. So what is this SARS-CoV-2? So this belongs to the coronavirus family of viruses, like beta coronavirus, has been circulating in horseshoe bats for almost 40 to 70 years and has sequences derived from the other bat coronavirus. The spike protein from the coronavirus associates with the pangolin, which is the kind of anteater kind of animal. So that is what is they are doubting. So the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein binds to ACE2 receptors on the human host cell. So where are these ACE2 receptors? So it's mainly, if you can see, it is in the respiratory epithelial cell, which is actually in the lungs. So especially from nose to the lungs, wherever we have the respiratory epithelial cells. So these are the fine receptors for the spike protein, which is S protein of COVID or the corona SARS-CoV-2. And not only that, nowadays, if you see the patients who are admitted to the hospital, who are severe, they have a lot of multi-organ damages, and that is mainly because even these receptors are found in kidney, liver, digestive tract, and heart. So definitely, even once it starts spreading, it even leads to other organ, reaches other organ, and leads to the damage of other organ. So what is this ACE2? It is like angiotensin converting enzyme. So this is an enzyme which actually is responsible for binding with the COVID or coronavirus. So more importantly, this enzyme is also responsible for regulating blood pressure, wound healing, and inflammation. So what happens with the patient of who are severe patients? They not only have problem just with respiratory problem, they develop blood pressure issue because of the regulation of blood pressure is also affected. Wound healing and inflammation, generally this also plays a major role, because once you have wound healing capability which is reduced, then definitely the cells would die sooner, and also inflammation would relate to a lot of other complications. So when SARS virus, CoV-2 virus binds to ACE2, not only does it allow entry into the host cell, but it also blocks the activity of ACE2, leading to increased inflammation, lead to tissue and organ damage, as I told. So we know that this COVID-19 has been called as pandemic. Pandemic is something where it is spread globally. Actually, it all started, if you can see this red dot, which is actually, this is in Wuhan, which is the China's animal market in Wuhan, which actually is led to this, which is from the Hubei province of China, is the Hubei and the Wuhan city. So how it is transmitted from person to person? So actually, if you can see by April 22, 2021, which is latest information, you can see the confirmed cases, and which is like 150 million cases which are confirmed, and you can see 3 million deaths, and it has almost reached 238 countries or territories. So that is the reason is kind of pandemic. And you can see this graph, which is very interesting. You can see this actually death per million inhabitants, like the population. So every million, you can see the lightest gray, which is here, which is less than 1 per million. And like that, if you can see, the highest is 1,000 per million. So which are like here, the Brazil is quite hit, America is hit, and Europe, there are a lot of countries which are hit. India actually is like 138 cases, and it's quite surprising. China, it started, and China has only 3 cases. India actually managed wave 1 very well, but still we have this 138 cases per million, with the almost similar kind of population with China and India. Because if you see, maybe the geographically India is thickly populated because of the area wise population, if you calculate, but compared to China, but still the numbers are quite high. And even the Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh, they're all like less than 100. Even the Sri Lanka, because most of these countries has the similar climatic condition, similar food habits, and similar race. But not sure why this is happening in India, because India compared to other countries, the neighboring countries, has a better healthcare system, and also compared to saying about the Pakistan or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka. But it's a big question why, so that we need to understand. So how is this spread? So coronavirus actually spreads mainly by person to person. When a person coughs, sneezes, or exhales, even sings. We have seen some of patients who got coronavirus when they are attending music classes, when because of the uh, singing, when they used to sing with their teacher, it has spread. So these actually are the droplet which lands on the objects and surface around the person. So actually what happens is, it is not like influenza virus, which is actually spread in the air. This is a droplet which is little heavier, so that it doesn't remain in the air for long, and generally it settles down. So this is what is important, to stay more than two, like what is important is to stay at least 2 meters away from a person who is sick. So that is very important for us. Then clinical presentation at onset. So what are the signs and symptoms? And like you can see here, so this is the number of patients from a study, and you can see these are the top number of percentage of patients having symptoms. So like almost 100% had fever, 70% had fatigue, dry cough was in 60%, anorexia and myalgia was somewhere around 35%. So dyspnea was in some 30%. So dyspnea is like difficult in breathing. So these are the major symptoms which we have to always remember: fever, cough, fatigue, sore throat, shortness of breath. And how is this clinically presented? Like you can see, 80% of them had no or mild pneumonia reported. So this is a very mild cases. Severe cases, example, dyspnea or hypoxia. Hypoxia is reduced oxygen levels. Dyspnea is difficulty in breathing, or less than 50%, more than 50% lung involvement on the imaging within the 24 to 48 hours reported in about 15%. So basically what we have to see is, out of 100, 80% are mild, severe is something around 15%, and critical are the one which are 5%. So critical are the one where they have respiratory failure, shock, multi-organ dysfunction. So these complications, who are generally elderly with the poor health problem. But nowadays what has happened, which we are noticing in India, that even the younger generation, like 40, 45 or 50, this range of patients are landing in critical disease. So this is a quite alarming situation which we are in. So this is the pyramid which you can see that say 80% is like infected and symptomatic, and 15% is hospitalized, and 5% is ICU and death. So prognosis or clinical outcomes of infectious disease. So generally what happens is, once the patient is infected, you have two way, like one become asymptomatic and symptomatic, so who are having disease with symptoms. And even asymptomatic patients can have a chronic infection and can lead to full recovery, and for symptomatic patients can again lead to full recovery, disability or death. So this is how the prognosis of the disease. So mortality is the death caused by COVID. So case fatality risk is actually measured of how serious a disease is, and it tells on the proportion of people who die. So when you see this other SARS, you can see the Middle East SARS, where it is like almost 30%, 35% had was the death rate actually, which is quite high. And SARS-1 is around 1 in 10, like SARS is 1 in 10, and in COVID it is 2%. So which is actually 1 in 50. This looks kind of very manageable, but the problem is, this too was kind of controlled very fast, and it did not spread much to the general population. But in the case of COVID, it is like all over. So that is what is worrisome. So let us see how this COVID actually transmits into the human cell, and how it affects the human cell, and how the immune response of the human cell to this COVID. So if you can see this, generally what happens, this is a SARS virus, which is having this S protein, which is the spike, you can see here. So this S protein, actually when we inhale this virus, this S protein gets in contact with the ACE2 receptor, which we were discussing. And this ACE2 receptor, once it gets kind of key lock kind of a system, it enters the receptor cell, respiratory cell. Then the virus enters the epithelium. So you can see this, it enters the epithelium, so inside the cell. Then virus fuses with the vesicles and also releases the RNA. So whatever the material, the protein material RNA, it has been released here. And the viral RNA translates into the proteins. And once this translates, it starts assembling and making multiple virus here within the healthy cell of a host. So once it makes multiple cells, it starts blast. So it starts coming out, it kills the healthy cells and it multiplies into several cells and go and again attach with the other healthy cells. So that's how this works. In the sense it impacts the healthy cell. But what happens to the immune system? So you can see here, once the virus is ingested by the antigen presenting cell, so APC what we call, so this is the antigen presenting cell. So this releases the viral peptides. So this actually is with the help of the T cell and as well as the C cell. So cytotoxic T cell and T helper cell and also the B cell. So this forms the antibodies in the human cells, and then it kind of creates the antibodies. You can see this Y shape. These are all the antibodies which actually will fight for the future infection. So that's how like 80% of the people who develop these antibodies will have the advantage of killing, in the sense fighting with the corona cells in the future for future infection. So the immune response to the SARS, like in COVID-19 patients, it impairs the immune system response by decreasing the normal production of the immune response cells. And also there is a link between the immune response to the SARS and predisposing factor for this is age, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, etc. So this is suggestive of a disease severity. So there is still a disagreement in the field about immunity to SARS in the sense for COVID after the recovery from the COVID. So this is like not sure how the immunity is developed. There is still a debate. So now we have understood how it infects and what are the symptoms and what's the severity and what we have to do now. So diagnose. First, we have to diagnose whether we have been infected by the coronavirus. So there are different techniques. One is a swab technique, and then which is actually the RNA. What they do is they take the swab from your nostrils or the oral cavity. Then they will do a RT-PCR test, which actually derive using the RNA. It in the kind of matches the RNA and says whether this is the SARS like COVID infection or not. So that's how it is done using this swab. Using the blood also they do this swab, which is actually antibodies. Once the antibodies are once a human being is infected, the antibodies gets generated. So this, once you take the blood, draw the blood from the patient and then check, if you find the antibodies, then you can say this person was infected by COVID. So that's how this is done. And now chest X-ray, CT scan is becoming more prevalent, especially CT scans, because nowadays most of the patients are turning out to be negative in this. So imaging is the best option. And you can see the average result time and accuracy for this, for the swab, it is like the result time is 3 to 5 days, and the accuracy is around 7 to 80 days, 70% to 80%. Why this 70 to 80%? Because sometimes what happens is initially when they do the testing, they see that the patient may have a virus which is in incubation, so but they miss the virus in the swab, but after a few days the patient will come with the symptoms or he will develop positivity. So that is the reason the accuracy is less in this case with swab. But nowadays I think this is increasing because there are more people who are getting infected, so this has increased. And when it comes to the antibody test, you can see it would take less than 20 minutes with the latest developed ELISA and other tools. So here the advantage or disadvantage you can see is after a week, you can see only 30% of the patients are shown positive. After 2 weeks, this is the after infection of a patient. Once the antibodies develop, after a week, only 30% show as positive. After 2 weeks, it is 70%. After 3 weeks, it is 90%. So generally, it is like, once the gap is more, then the antibodies you can find. So that is the reason the efficacy increases once the time duration goes up to 3 weeks. And after 3 weeks, I think it is less. So with regard to chest X-ray and all, it takes a couple of hours and quite easy to identify. So this is the clinical guidelines, because till now what I would discuss with regarding to is globally, and this is actually the guidelines which is given from the Indian government, Ministry of Health, and here you can see the clinical guidelines for the management of COVID for the suspected and confirmed cases. So mild, moderate, and severe. I think this is too much to discuss and go in detail. So what we have to understand is, whenever there is a fever and upper respiratory tract infection which is mild, so it is always better to have a home isolation and then have symptomatic treatment. So that's what is the mild case. So moderate case is when you have pneumonia with no signs of severe disease, then and also the respiratory rate and as well as the SpTO, saturation of oxygen, is less than 94. If it is less than 94 and more than 90, so it is moderate case. So then what you have to do is you have to admit the patient and have the oxygen support and other supportive care. But when it is severe, like if the oxygen saturation level is less than 90 in the room's air setting, then he has to be admitted immediately and provide all sorts of medications. Like the investigation therapies which are right now in India are remdesivir, which is actually one which is approved for the emergency use, and tocilizumab is actually off-label, and also convalescent plasma is actually off-label. Actually, there are a lot of hospitals nowadays requesting for this plasma, but most of the studies, I'm not sure why they're asking for this plasma for all the patients, but most of the studies internationally also has not provided any benefit from the plasma treatment. So why I'm saying is there's a lot of rush in the hospital for remdesivir as well as the plasma. Remdesivir is a kind of antiviral which has some kind of benefit, but not very good benefit in the sense when it comes to cure. It's only the number of days admission to the hospital is reduced, recovery time is reduced rather. So that's what is remdesivir with the case of remdesivir. But plasma, I think, is a big question mark. So now we'll just look at the treatment globally, what is happening. So most people who become ill is, as I told, recovery at home, and some of the same things which we follow, like getting enough rest, stay well hydrated, take medications to relieve fever and aches and pain, so which generally we do. And FDA has also authorized treatment that may be used for people who have been hospitalized. So that is actually I think we'll see next slides, and other medication to curb the progression of COVID-19 who are like not hospitalized. So as I was saying, there are two medicines which are approved in the case of FDA. So if you can see this combination of casirivimab as well as imidivimab, and also a combination of balvinimab and also itesivimab. So these are the two combination drugs which are which has been granted for emergency use authorization. These are actually the monoclonal antibodies. So, which are the antibodies which are treated for non-hospitalized adults and also children over the age of 12 with mild to moderate symptoms. So, but in India we are not doing this. So in April 2021, prior to approval of this solo use of bamlanivimab, which is actually has been withdrawn now, which was used earlier as a solo. So what medications can doctor use for the people who are hospitalized? So the earlier what we saw was without hospital, like who are at home, not hospitalized. So this is with the hospitalized patients. So generally it is dexamethasone, which is a corticosteroid, which actually has been time tested, which is used for the. What happens is most of the patients who develop COVID-19, say the immune system starts responding, and due to the hyper response, so the chances of damage to the lung and other organs are there, which can lead to death. So to reduce that response, dexamethasone is used. So remdesivir is actually, as I told, it is an antiviral which actually was for some other disease. Then it's now used here, which is approved antiviral drug to treat adults and children age 12 and above for the hospitalized patients. But clinical trials suggest that remdesivir may modestly speed up the recovery time, as I told. And there is another combination which is for monoclonal antibodies like baricitinib and remdesivir combination, which is in November 2020 FDA issued an emergency use, which is especially for the adults and pediatric patients like 2 years old children. This can be used, but lacks the evidence again. So anticoagulation drugs or blood thinners is almost used for all the patients because it has been seen that most of the patients with COVID develop blood clots. So that is the reason to prevent the blood clots, this is given. And then, as I told, convalescent plasma, which again is of FDA approved in August, in the sense for emergency use authorization for the hospitalized patient. And most importantly, what we need to see from this slide or takeaway message for us is this vitamin D. Vitamin D is a big issue in Indian population. Like, more than 70% of Indian population, they are deficient with vitamin D. And you can see there is some evidence to suggest that vitamin D might help protect against becoming infected with and develop serious symptoms of COVID-19. So if we start consuming vitamin D, regular in the sense you should know the dose. Initially they give it once a week for 1 month, then every month one tablet or capsule or sachet. So nowadays I think everybody is aware of this, but you have to use till we come out of this COVID situation, because if we have the vitamin D, our immunity will be higher to fight COVID virus. So now we will understand the importance of COVID-19 vaccines. So till now we saw the treatment, how it is done. Definitely we don't have any available treatment. It is only about managing it. So vaccines are the one which we can have hope. So there are different way of getting the vaccines, like viral vector or RNA or whole virus or protein subunit. So we don't go into details in this. Generally, we need to understand what happens in the case of vaccine. Once we have the vaccine, the vaccine generally contains material like which like messenger RNAs, which actually antibodies, which carries the antibodies. Like in the sense, viral vector actually is the harmless virus. I think this is from if you see the Covishield from Serum or AstraZeneca. So they have used this viral vector where they have used the chimpanzee rotavirus, which they have used this virus and they have put the antibody into that. And then once it is a safe virus, so it goes and produces the antibodies, and then it will be through the immune response of our own body. So the spike protein which triggers the immune response, then we develop the antibodies. So what they do is the spike proteins, not the antibody, sorry. They put the spike protein into the virus, and then they release like into the blood flow, human blood, so which develops the antibodies. And RNA is a nucleic acid, which is again the genetic code of the RNA messenger, which is again using this spike protein, they leave it. So this develop again the antibodies. So similarly, the whole virus. So what they do is they weaken the virus or inactivated virus or a dead virus. They will release into the body. So that again develops the antibodies. So this weakened virus again, once it comes, it will not be harmful. It is weakened so that the antibodies are produced to keep ready or be ready to fight if we get the infection. So again, the protein subunit uses the pieces of the COVID-19 virus and sometimes fragments of the spike protein, and then it is left. So generally what they do is they just introduce the protein in our body so that with the different carriers, and once we receive that, the vaccination, we develop the antibodies, and once the antibodies is developed, we are ready to fight for the future COVID infection. So that is the logic. So what are the companies which are developed the vaccines, and what are the efficacy rates, and what are the doses? So if you can just see, there are several companies which have developed, rather which are famous, which I have put here. For Indian perspective, I think only this Covishield from Serum, then Bharat Biotech Covaxin, and Sputnik is from Russia. So it's still not in, I think we're not started using, we are right now using only Covishield and Covaxin. Covaxin has a 78% efficacy. Covishield has 70.4% efficacy, and all are 2 doses. And you internationally, you can see Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and Sinopharma. These are the companies who are producing vaccines. And in this, Pfizer has 95% efficacy, Moderna has 94%, and Johnson & Johnson has 66%, and Sinopharm has 79%. Only differentiator is Johnson & Johnson is single dose. I think even 2 dose also they are doing trial. And most importantly, if you can see vaccine pipeline, so clinical development, you have 93 vaccines which are developed, and then preclinical development, which is not in the clinical phase. This is before the clinical phase, which is 184 vaccines are getting ready. So there are a lot of vaccines which are getting ready. So what is the pipeline of products which are or molecules which are there for COVID to fight? So you can see there are 824 unique active compounds in development. Then in this, 213 are vaccines, 245 are antivirals like remdesivir, these kind of antivirals, and 366 are treatments like supportive care and other things. So out of these 373 clinical compounds, 451 preclinical compounds. So this is not just vaccine, this is overall treatments which are developed, and the therapies which are developed, you can see which are originating from their headquarters, like global, from where all these medicines are coming. So you can see US stands number 1 with 409 out of 824, so like almost 50% is from here. And Canada is 44, so it is around 5%. And China is again 5%, 44. India is like 12 molecules or products which are getting in trial. So in the sense, India is kind of coming up here is something which is encouraging, because generally in India we never had much of research activities. We used to always have the generic or branded generic products. So what is the COVID-19 wave in India? So this is something which is of interest for us. So you can see for example, when it started March 20, you can see the test taken was 1,125 tests were done, swab tests, and 24 patients were positive. So this was 2.1%. So it started with 24 patients somewhere in Kerala, south, I think started. Then you can see the curve, how it has gone up. So in October 20, so from March 20 to October, you can see the tests taken were like, so many tests were done, 11 lakh tests were done, and 50,000 This is per day, that is 7-day average when they take per day. This was the peak then, which was 50,000 patients which were reported positive. And then the curve came down, the wave came down, and it was something like 12,000 patients were positive. This was in February 2021. And suddenly the second wave started from here. And now just like April 29th, if you see, we have almost like 356,000 patients who tested positive. So it's a kind of huge increase in the second wave. So we have to see how we can curtail this. So COVID-19 wave, India challenges. What are the challenges we have? The challenge is the huge population, which is 1.4 crore, which is a major hurdle for us. Because of the population, we are more prone for the infection. So social distancing without total shutdown is unthinkable for us, that too in the second wave. So cough hygiene is largely absent. Generally, I think now people are started doing it, but in general it was not there. Then the prevalence of diabetes and hypertension, you can see 10% of Indian population is diabetic, 25% is hypertension, so they are more prone for severe disease. Then high rates of TB and pneumonia, again this have the impact on the lungs, so severe diseases are quite common because of this reason. And as I was telling, prevalence of vitamin D deficiency is like 80 to 90%. So this which we can try to increase, again always with your doctor's advice. And India has just 0.8 doctor per 1,000 population. So you can just imagine, not even one doctor we have for 1,000 population, and also not even one bed for less than one bed, 0.7 per 1,000 population. So these are the major thing. And also vaccine production and logistics. So these are the challenges. Vaccine production, because of the huge population, to make produce the vaccine is a big challenge. And also logistics like distribution and also giving the vaccines to the patient, in the sense general public, is a big challenge. So COVID-19 impact on economy. So as I was telling, the first case reported in January in Kerala, this rigorous airport screening of coronavirus was done, and then following weeks saw a quick succession of events leading to suspension of all travel in and out of the country, March 22nd, 2020. And also, that we had the lockdown, Janta curfew, all this. So which all had estimated impact of our GDP from October to December 2020. It was 0.4% reduction in GDP, which had an impact. Then estimated cost of full lockdown was 26 billion US dollar. And also government aid as of May 2020 was somewhere around 348 billion Indian rupees. So this is the kind of impact economically what we had. And there are so many things we can go in detail, but I think due to the time we cannot go on that. So what are the challenges which we have? I think we did the challenge. I think it's a repetition, sorry. So how strong we can be when it comes to COVID-19. So COVID, especially this is for the students or the younger generation. So we have to be strong as well as we have to be positive. So first thing is adhere to the guidelines issued by the government very strictly. Like, whatever government has given right now, lockdown in Bangalore or in Karnataka. So we have to adhere to the government, because all this information or the guidelines will be given by the panel of specialists. So that is the reason it is always better to follow that, and generally follow SMS, which is sanitize, mask, and social distancing. Sanitize in the sense, I would always recommend to use soap instead of sanitizer, because it is always better for your skin instead of sanitizer, which has some issues with long-term use. And any COVID-19 symptoms, just don't ignore, get detected, but always never get panic, because just you have a positive report, never get panic, because as I told, 80% of people develop antibodies on their own, and there is no need for any treatment, just the symptomatic treatment like reduction of your fever and pain, just take some paracetamol. So that is sufficient. And panicking is a big issue nowadays. Because of this panic, due to the reports, people go to the hospitals. They're just blocking the hospitals, and the 5%, or you can consider 20%, who require the hospital beds, oxygen, they're actually not getting it. So that is the thing which is leading to havoc in our country. I think we, as educated people, we should understand, as the guidelines has been given by the government, we have to adhere to that. Don't rush, don't panic. And even when you panic, when your anxiety is high, the chances of oxygen saturation reading is less. So always better to be calm, take it positively. And also when it comes to students, it is like, better online classes and exams till the situation is under control. That's what is my recommendation. I'm not sure what the colleges take, because nowadays a lot of young students and especially young faculty are affected, and I think we have lost few young faculties also. I think this is something which we have to be very careful and very take it very seriously when it comes to college functioning. So what is the ray of hope? I think we have all discussed all these aspects of COVID, but is there anything which we have to see? So I've been just trying to see if I can, try to do something for, for the society. Rather, I start with my home, then my friends, relatives, then spread to the society about how we can reduce this issue. So the neem is a ray of hope. That's how I found. I started using neem from last year. Once this COVID came, in the sense first wave started, I started using neem oil, and I was aware because mainly the the COVID virus enters our body from our nostrils or from our mouth. So generally, that is the reason we ask to wear mask. So mouth or nostril are the two entry points. So what I used to do is I used to use neem oil and apply to my nostrils, inside the nostril, using a earbud, and then I used to take little deep breath and then press my nose. So that used to kind of spread the oil completely within the nostrils. And also what I used to do is, once in a while, when I used to go out and come back, I used to use the same oil for the lukewarm water. I used to put 4-5 drops and I used to gargle it. So this is what we used to follow in our house, and we informed our relatives and known friends. Most of them started using it, and touch wood or God's grace, we did not had much of impact of COVID symptoms. So that is one thing. So that is the reason I was doing some study to understand the details of neem. And I study in the sense, I don't do any lab work or anything, because we do mainly the secondary research, mainly the publication research. So once you see this data, in the sense information, what I'm going to share, you'll be surprised to see neem, which is actually is known for its healing property as far as 5000 BC, like almost 7000 years old. Thing which we are aware of from Indian continent. And also, as per Ayurvedic text, neem is described as Sarva Roga Nivarani. And in Sanskrit, it is called as Arishta, which is meaning perfect, complete, and imperishable. So I think this is one which I feel can save us from the current situation. So why I'm saying this, I was just doing some literature research, and you can see quercetin, they have tried to find out whether it is a natural therapeutic candidate for the treatment of influenza virus. So quercetin is actually a compound which is a phytocompound which is available in the neem leaf. So neem leaf has this. There are several compounds, but this actually, if you can see, it actually what quercetin does. You can just read the future perspectives here regarding the importance of efficacy of quercetin other flavonoids against influenza virus. So flavonoids have attached increasing attention as a potential therapeutic to combat infection from this COVID, from the human corona family, which has been responsible for a rapid worldwide pandemic starting from 2020. So all this is fine. So what does it does? So you can see quercetin has been found among the top 5 most potent compounds to bind strongly to the spike protein. I was talking about spike protein, which is S protein, which is the one which gets bind to the AAC2 receptor, if you remember. So what it does is, this compound binds strongly to the spike protein, thereby it actually, chances of the virus, once this binds to spike protein, the spike protein cannot bind with the host cell, the human cell. So then this cannot continue living, so it dies. So that's what is the logic using this quercetin. And also one more component which is found in neem oil is called rutin, and you can see even routine is also very effective in case of destroying the uh, COVID cell or SARS-CoV-2. So that COVID, is something which can be handled. I feel can be handled using this, and but only challenge is because these are the what is a phyto compounds which are derived from the plants. What happens is it cannot get transformed by biotransformation into the gastrointestinal tract. So we cannot have it as a medicine, as a capsule or injection. So because it cannot get digest, in the sense it because of the metabolism of the human metabolism, the lot of juices, the whatever is the compound, it doesn't remain the same, so it changes. So that's the reason it cannot reach the virus at the active site, and it cannot kill, in the sense it cannot destroy. So that is the reason the best way of using this would be using the neem leaf. I would say now we have shifted from neem oil now to neem leaf. So neem leaf contains this quercetin and rutin. So that is the reason you can use it to the entry points like nasal or throat or both. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to get the oil from the uh, neem leaf. What I'll probably explain you, because I was not, due to paucity of time, I was not able to prepare few slides. I'll just explain you. So neem leaf, which contains these compounds, once you derive that neem oil by just using the coconut oil at your house, take the neem leaves, wash it, dry it, in the sense take out the water from the leaves after washing, then grind it using the mixer grinder to a paste. And once you make that paste, you put coconut oil to it. Like for example, once the paste, if you have 100 grams of paste, put 100 grams of or 150 grams of coconut oil. Then you have to boil it, but you cannot directly boil it. You have to just have a pan with water. Then this vessel containing neem paste, neem leaf paste, as well as the oil, that vessel you have to keep in the water, and then you have to, it is called double boil. So boil it, and once it completely boil, you have to take it out, cool it, then filter it, and the oil is ready for use. So once you have this oil, what you have to do is you have to just, as I was doing, use the earbud, apply to your both the nostrils, then just take deep breath, press your nose a bit so that it spreads everywhere, and take a deep breath, so the oil remains there, which has these two compounds. And also you can gargle it 3-4 times and apply this oil 3-4 times in a day. And also when, if you inhale, in the sense steam inhalation, when you do, you can put few drops of this oil and inhale. So doing this, I feel that the virus, if you by chance get attached in, you get contact with the virus, if it is in incubation stage, it gets destroyed. So that is the advantage of using this neem leaf oil. Don't buy the neem oil which is derived from the seed. Always buy, in the sense, I don't think you get in the market the neem leaf oil. So you have to prepare the neem leaf oil on your own at home. So this is one thing. And why I got interested in this is because I have just looked into one of the websites. This is a company called Viruxol. This is from Iceland, and they have actually patented this. And this actually is, you can see the laboratory studies which shows that Viruxol destroys 99.97% of SARS virus, the CoV2 virus, that is COVID virus. So 99.97%, which is almost 100% of the virus, can be addressed by using neem oil, because this product contains, you can just go through the website. I have shown this. You can go through this website, check the website, you have all the details. They use mainly neem oil, but they never inform whether this neem oil is made of seed or the leaf. But in general, because we know that seed oil doesn't contain quercetin and rutin, so it is always better to use the neem leaf oil and kill or destroy the virus, COVID virus, before entry. So that is the advantage when we use this. But whatever you do, mask, washing your hand, social distance, sanitizing is always important. But with that, using neem leaf oil can take care of this problem. But Viruxol is available in the market, not in Indian market, international market, as both nasal spray as well as the oral spray. So what I told, the technique, just applying with the earbud and also doing gargle would take care of this expensive devices. This, because this individual 20 ml device cost you around 21 euros. You can just imagine how expensive. And what I am saying, it is very humbly, humble plant leaves you can take and do it at home. It doesn't take much time. Just prepare it and then start using it. I would say share this information to all your friends and relatives. I have made some videos in the YouTube, and I'm going to do few more videos. Maybe you can share those videos, see those videos, and share that videos to your friends and relatives, so that we can come out of this problem of COVID as soon as possible. So see why I'm saying this. I could have, because I have a company, I could have come up with a product. I could have done similar to this and made a $1 million product. But my intention is that takes a lot of time, getting government approvals, getting the resources, sources, raw materials. All this would take a lot of time. But by doing that, I would be losing a lot of our Indian citizens. So every life is precious to me. So my intention is not making money. So that is the reason I want this to spread across India. Let us use it. And one more thing you need to remember is, there are news. There is a news that last 4 or 5 days back, there is a virus variant which is from Sri Lanka, which is again the coronavirus, which is a different variant that stays in air for 60 minutes. There is 1 hour it stays in the air. So it is very easy for us to get infected if we don't follow mask, like in the sense SMS. And also, if we use our neem leaf oil, I think we can easily fight back and show the world that we can fight this COVID-19 in this kind of situation. I think go back and second. I would thank Jyoti Institute of Technology Management, faculty and student for giving me this opportunity to talk about COVID to students. And also I would keep the session open for question answers, if any, from the students. Thank you.